You know that moment when someone thinks they're playing chess, but you've been playing the entire game 3 moves ahead? That's exactly what happened when my wife decided to follow her best friend's brilliant relationship advice about taking a break to make me panic and promise everything. It was a Thursday evening when she came home with that rehearsed confidence. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through some work documents, when she walked in with this weird energy, like she was about to deliver some grand announcement that would change everything. She sat down across from me, took a deep breath, and said it with the kind of dramatic pause you'd expect from a soap opera. I think we need to take a break. Now, most guys would probably start spiraling, asking what they did wrong, begging for another chance. But here's the thing, I'd been expecting this for weeks. See, her best friend isn't exactly subtle when she's had a few drinks at their weekly dinners. Last month, I overheard a phone conversation where she was practically coaching my wife on how to get the upper hand in our marriage. The plan was simple: announce a break, watch me panic, then swoop in as the hero who's willing to work things out while I'm supposedly grateful and willing to promise anything to keep her. So when she delivered her line, I just nodded and said, "Perfect timing." She blinked, clearly thrown off by my response. This wasn't in the script her friend had given her. "What do you mean, perfect timing?" she asked, and I could hear the first crack in her confidence. I reached into the stack of papers in front of me and pulled out a document I'd been reviewing. "Well, I've been considering this job transfer opportunity in Denver. Great promotion, significant pay increase, company housing assistance. I was debating whether to accept it or not because I didn't want to disrupt our life here." I slid the approval letter across the table. Her eyes scanned it quickly, and I watched her face change from confident to confused to something approaching panic. You applied for a transfer?" she stammered. "3 months ago. Got the approval last week. I've been thinking about it since then, wondering if it was the right move for us." I leaned back in my chair, completely calm. "But if you want a break, well, that makes the decision pretty easy, doesn't it?" The color drained from her face. This was definitely not how her friend said this would go. But I didn't mean. I mean, we could work through this, she started backpedaling. "Work through what exactly?" I asked. "You just said you want a break. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. In fact, I'm making it even better. You'll have all the space you need, and I'll be starting fresh in a new city with a career opportunity I've been dreaming about." She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "This isn't what I meant when I said break." "Really?" "Because it sounded pretty clear to me. You want space, time apart to figure things out. Denver gives us plenty of both." I gathered up my papers, including the transfer approval. "Actually, this works out better than I thought. I was worried about asking you to relocate, but now I don't have to. You can't just leave," she said, and now there was genuine panic in her voice. "Why not? You just told me you want a break. I'm not leaving you. I'm respecting your wishes while pursuing an amazing opportunity. It's a win-win." I stood up and headed toward the kitchen to grab a beer. "Oh, and don't worry about the timing. They want me to start in 3 weeks, which gives us plenty of time to figure out the logistics." 3 weeks. Her voice cracked slightly. "Yep, fast-track program for experienced candidates. They're even covering all moving expenses and providing temporary housing until I find a permanent place." I took a swig of my beer and looked at her. "You should probably call your friend and thank her for the advice. Without her brilliant idea about taking a break, I might have turned down this opportunity." The look on her face was priceless. The confident woman who had walked in ready to manipulate the situation was gone, replaced by someone who was clearly realizing she'd just played herself. "I need to think about this," she said weakly. "Of course you do. That's what breaks are for, right? Thinking." I headed toward the stairs. "I'll be upstairs making some calls. Denver wants a response by tomorrow, and thanks to your timing, I know exactly what to tell them." As I walked away, I could hear her frantically dialing her phone. I didn't need to guess who she was calling. Her friend's brilliant strategy had just backfired spectacularly, and they both knew it. The best part? I genuinely was excited about the Denver opportunity. Sometimes the universe has a funny way of aligning things perfectly. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hushed, frantic whispering downstairs. My wife was on the phone at 7 a.m., which meant one thing: damage control mode was in full effect. I made my coffee and headed to my home office. Had 3 calls scheduled with Denver HR to discuss relocation details, and I wanted to get started early. The promotion was real, the opportunity was legitimate, and her little stunt had just made my decision incredibly easy. Around 9, she appeared in my doorway with that fake casual attitude people use when they're trying to seem nonchalant, but are actually freaking out inside. "So, I talked to my friend last night," she started. "Oh, the one who coached you on relationship manipulation tactics?" I didn't look up from my laptop. "How'd that conversation go?" She froze. "What do you mean coached me? Please. You think I didn't notice the sudden personality change? The strategic timing? The rehearsed delivery?" I finally looked at her. "I've been married to you for 6 years. I know when you're being yourself and when you're following someone else's script." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. "You knew?" "I've known for weeks." Overheard that phone call where she was explaining how to regain control of our marriage by making me chase you. I leaned back in my chair. Honestly, I was curious to see how far you'd actually take it. The color drained from her face. "So you were just waiting?" I was considering my options. The Denver transfer was already on the table. I just hadn't decided whether it was worth disrupting our life here. I shrugged. "Turns out you made that decision for me." She sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. "This isn't how this was supposed to go." "No kidding. Let me guess. I was supposed to panic, beg you to reconsider, promise to change, maybe throw in some expensive jewelry or a vacation to win you back?" She didn't answer, but her expression said everything. "Here's the thing about manipulation tactics," I continued. "They only work on people who don't see them coming. Once you know someone's trying to play you, the game changes completely." My phone rang. "Denver HR, right on schedule." "Excuse me, I need to take this." I answered with professional enthusiasm. "Good morning. This is about the senior position transfer." "Yes, absolutely. I'm ready to move forward with the acceptance." I watched her face crumble as I confirmed start dates, discussed housing arrangements, and finalized salary details. This wasn't a bluff or a threat. This was me actively building a new life. When I hung up, she was staring at me with a mixture of shock and desperation. "You just accepted it. You actually accepted the job." "Why wouldn't I? Great opportunity, fresh start, and apparently my wife wants space to figure herself out. Seems like perfect timing all around. But what about us? What about our marriage? What about it? You said you wanted a break. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." I started typing notes from the call. "Actually, I should thank you. Without this conversation, I might have let this opportunity pass by." She was quiet for a long moment. What if I changed my mind? What if I said I didn't want the break anymore? I stopped typing and looked at her directly. "You mean what if you realized your manipulation backfired and now you want to control the situation again?" "That's not. I wasn't trying to manipulate." "Really? So your friend didn't specifically tell you to announce a break and watch me panic? She didn't coach you on how to make me desperate to keep you?" I raised an eyebrow. Because I heard that entire conversation, word for word. She slumped in her chair, caught completely. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my tone matter of fact. "I'm taking the Denver position. It's an incredible opportunity that I've worked years to earn. You can decide what you want to do. Come with me and actually be a supportive partner, or stay here and enjoy the break you asked for." "Those aren't really choices," she said quietly. "Sure they are. But here's the thing. I'm done with games. I'm done with tests. I'm done with following scripts written by people who think relationships are about power plays and manipulation." My phone buzzed with a text. "Moving company wanting to schedule an estimate. I've got the movers coming Thursday to give quotes. If you want to be part of this move, you need to decide now. Not after more conversations with your friend, not after more strategic planning sessions. Now." She stared at me like she was seeing a completely different person. "You're serious? You're actually doing this?" "Dead serious. I've spent too many years building my career to let relationship games derail an opportunity like this." I stood up. "Your friend's advice cost you the chance to be in control of this situation. Now you get to decide if it costs you your marriage too." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and when you talk to her today, and we both know you will, tell her that manipulation tactics work both ways. The difference is, mine actually succeeded." As I walked out, I could already hear her reaching for her phone. Time for round 2 of damage control. Too bad for both of them. I was already 3 moves ahead. By Thursday afternoon, the moving estimates were done, boxes were ordered, and I had a detailed timeline for my relocation. My wife, meanwhile, had gone through what I can only describe as the 5 stages of manipulation grief. First came denial. She spent 2 days acting like nothing had changed, making dinner, trying to initiate normal conversations about weekend plans. When I reminded her we needed to decide what furniture was staying versus going, reality hit. Then came anger. You can't just uproot our entire life because of one conversation, she yelled Tuesday night. This is insane. I'm not uprooting our life. I replied calmly while labeling boxes. I'm accepting a promotion that represents years of hard work. You're the one who wanted space to think. Wednesday brought bargaining. She offered couples counseling, a second honeymoon, even suggested we could try for kids, something she'd been avoiding for 2 years. We can work through this without you leaving the state, she pleaded. Work through what exactly? The fact that you tried to manipulate me based on your friend's advice? Or the fact that when I didn't react the way you expected, you want to pretend it never happened? Now it was Thursday, and we'd entered the depression stage. She'd been crying on and off since breakfast, making phone calls to family members, painting me as the villain who was abandoning our marriage over a misunderstanding. I was in the garage, organizing tools, when her friend finally showed up. I'd been wondering when she'd make her appearance. We need to talk, she announced, marching into my garage like she owned the place. Do we? I continued wrapping tools in newspaper. This whole thing is my fault. I gave her bad advice, but you can't destroy your marriage because of it. I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. You're absolutely right about one thing. It is your fault, but wrong about everything else. Look, I was just trying to help her feel more appreciated. You've been taking her for granted, and I thought if you realized you might lose her. Let me stop you right there. I set down the wrench I was holding. You thought you could manipulate me into being a more grateful husband by having my wife threaten to leave. That's not advice. That's sabotage. She shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, it was supposed to work. I was supposed to panic, grovel, make promises, maybe buy expensive gifts. Then you could both feel superior about how you trained me to be a better husband. Her silence confirmed everything. Here's what you didn't count on, I continued. I don't respond well to manipulation. I don't play games. And I definitely don't reward people who try to control me through psychological tactics. But she loves you. She's devastated. She's devastated because your plan backfired. If she loved me, she wouldn't have tried to manipulate me in the first place. My wife appeared in the garage doorway, eyes red from crying. Please, can we just talk about this? All three of us. There's nothing to talk about. I went back to packing. I'm taking a job I've earned. You wanted space to think, and now you have it. Your friend's strategy didn't work out the way you hoped. End of story. It was just supposed to make you appreciate what you have, my wife said desperately. I did appreciate what I had. Past tense. What I don't appreciate is being tested, manipulated, or treated like a lab rat in your relationship experiments. Her friend stepped forward. What if she promises never to listen to my advice again? What if we both admit we were wrong? I laughed, actually laughed. You think this is about promises? This is about character. You showed me exactly who you both are when you thought you could get away with it. People make mistakes, my wife whispered. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated plan to manipulate me into submission. The only mistake was thinking I wouldn't figure it out. I closed the box I was packing and labeled it clearly, Garage Tools, Denver. The movers come Monday. I start work the following Thursday. These are facts, not negotiations. Her friend tried one more angle. What about forgiveness? What about working through problems together? I am forgiving. I'm not pressing charges for fraud. I'm not contesting any joint assets. I'm not even demanding she pay back the marriage counseling sessions we apparently didn't need. I looked directly at her. But forgiveness doesn't mean accepting manipulation as normal behavior. My wife broke down completely. I can't believe you're throwing away 6 years of marriage over this. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing not to stay in a relationship where my partner gets advice on how to psychologically manipulate me from someone who thinks marriage is a power game. I picked up another box and headed toward the house. You both made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. As I walked away, I heard her friend say, maybe if you go to Denver and show him you're willing to change. I paused at the door. Don't. This isn't a romantic comedy where grand gestures fix everything. This is real life, where actions have consequences. That evening, I got a call from Denver HR. They were excited to have me join the team and wanted to discuss some additional responsibilities that came with the position. As I talked through the exciting challenges ahead, I realized something important. I was genuinely looking forward to my new life. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is when someone shows you exactly who they are. It makes your decisions incredibly clear. Saturday brought our monthly family dinner at my in-laws' house, a tradition I normally enjoyed, but this time it would serve a different purpose entirely. My wife had spent the week calling relatives, painting herself as the victim of my sudden, unreasonable decision to abandon our marriage for a job. I arrived with a folder of documents and a recording on my phone that would set the record straight once and for all. There he is, my father-in-law said as I walked into their living room. The man who's apparently too good for family now. The whole family was there, parents, siblings, even my wife's grandmother who rarely left her house. They'd clearly been primed for an intervention. Actually, I'm glad everyone's here, I said, setting my folder on the coffee table. Saves me from having to repeat this conversation multiple times. My wife shot me a warning look, but I was way past caring about her comfort level. So I understand there's been some confusion about why I'm relocating to Denver. I began. Let me clear that up for everyone. My mother-in-law jumped in immediately. We know you got a job offer, but leaving your wife over career advancement seems extreme. You're absolutely right. It would be extreme if that's what was happening. I opened my folder. But that's not the whole story, is it? I looked directly at my wife, who had gone pale. 3 weeks ago, my wife announced she wanted a break from our marriage. What she didn't mention to any of you is that this wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was part of a calculated plan. What are you talking about? Her sister asked. I pulled out my phone. I'm talking about this conversation I recorded last month when her friend came over to coach her on relationship manipulation tactics. The room went silent. My wife's eyes went wide with panic. You recorded us? She whispered. I recorded someone in my own home discussing how to psychologically manipulate me. Turns out that's perfectly legal. I hit play. Her friend's voice filled the room, crystal clear. Just tell him you need a break to think things through. He'll panic because men always panic when they think they're losing control. Then when he's desperate and promising to change everything, you swoop in like the hero willing to work it out. You'll have all the power in the relationship after that. Then my wife's voice. But what if he doesn't panic? What if he just says okay? Trust me, he will. Men like him need to feel needed. Take that away and watch him crumble. Then you can train him to be the husband you actually want. The silence in the room was deafening. I stopped the recording. So when she announced our break, I told her about the Denver promotion I'd been considering. Funny thing about manipulation, it only works if the target doesn't see it coming. My father-in-law looked between me and his daughter. Is this true? My wife was crying now, but not the sympathetic tears she'd been using all week. These were tears of absolute humiliation. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she managed. What wasn't supposed to be like what? Her grandmother asked sharply. You tried to trick your husband? Her friend said it would make him appreciate me more, my wife sobbed. So instead of talking to your husband like an adult, you decided to play mind games? This from her brother, who was looking at her like he'd never seen her before. I pulled out the Denver offer letter. This is a senior director position with a 40% salary increase and full relocation package. It's the kind of opportunity most people work their entire careers for. I set it on the table next to the recording transcript I'd printed out. Your daughter tried to manipulate me into being a more grateful husband by threatening our marriage. When that backfired, she spent this week calling all of you to paint me as the villain for choosing career advancement over fixing our problems. Her mother picked up the transcript and started reading. Her expression changed completely. The real question, I continued, is what kind of person gets coached on how to psychologically manipulate their spouse, then follows through with the plan when they think it'll work. My wife's sister was staring at her in shock. You actually did this? You planned this whole thing? I was just trying to make him pay more attention to me, my wife said weakly. By pretending you wanted to leave him, her grandmother said. That's not how marriage works, honey. Her father cleared his throat. Son, I owe you an apology. We didn't know the full story. I didn't expect you to. She's been calling you all week describing me as heartless and unreasonable, but I wanted you to hear the truth from me before I leave. I stood up and collected my documents. The movers come Monday. I fly out Wednesday to start house hunting. The job starts the following week. What about counseling? Her mother asked. What about working through this? What exactly would we work through? The fact that she tried to manipulate me or the fact that she got caught? I shook my head. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. My wife looked around the room desperately. The family that had been ready to shame me for abandoning her was now looking at her like she was a stranger. Please, she whispered to me, don't leave like this. I'm not leaving like anything. I'm accepting a promotion I've earned and starting a new chapter in my life. You're the one who said you wanted a break to think things through. I headed toward the door, then turned back one last time. For what it's worth, I hope you figure out what you actually want instead of letting your friend decide for you. But whatever you figure it out on your own time. As I walked to my car, I could hear the family discussion erupting behind me. Not angry voices directed at me anymore, but confused, disappointed voices directed at her. Sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon you can use. And sometimes, the best way to win is to simply let people see who they're really dealing with. Sunday through Tuesday were the longest 3 days of what was left of our marriage. After the family dinner disaster, my wife went into full desperation mode while I methodically prepared for my new life. The movers showed up Monday morning right on schedule. As they loaded box after box into the truck, she made increasingly frantic attempts to change my mind. I'll cut all contact with her, she said, following me from room to room. I'll never speak to her again. Good for you, I replied, directing the movers toward my office equipment. That's probably a smart decision regardless of what happens with us. I mean it. I'll block her number, delete her from social media, everything. You should do what you think is right. I handed the movers another box. Just don't do it for me. Do it because you finally realized she's toxic. By Monday afternoon, most of my belongings were either packed in the truck heading to Denver or stored in the garage for pickup later. The house looked strange, half empty, like a movie set being dismantled. That's when her friend showed up again, this time with what I can only describe as a full confession and apology tour. I need to make this right, she announced, barging through the front door. This is all my fault. Finally, something we agree on. I was cleaning out the last of my desk drawers. I'll call your job. I'll explain that this was my fault, that you're making a mistake because of bad advice I gave her. I stopped what I was doing and stared at her. You'll do what now? I'll call Denver and tell them you're having marital problems because of me, that you're not thinking clearly. Let me stop you right there. I put down the papers I was holding. You think I'm going to let you sabotage my career because your manipulation didn't work out the way you planned? She looked confused. I'm trying to help fix this. No, you're trying to control the situation one more time, just like you've been doing this entire marriage. I walked toward her. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my house, stay away from my wife while she figures out her life, and if you even think about contacting my employer, I'll make sure that recording gets shared with everyone you both know. Her face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. She left without another word. Tuesday brought the final wave of desperation. My wife had clearly spent the night crafting what she thought would be the perfect speech to change everything. I've been thinking about what you said. She started over coffee that morning. About showing you who I really am. Have you? I was reviewing my flight details for Wednesday. I realized that I've been letting other people influence me too much. Not just her, but my mother, my sisters, even social media. I lost track of what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. This was more self-awareness than she'd shown in months, but it was also 3 days too late. That's good insight, I said genuinely. You should explore that in therapy. But what if I can prove that I've changed? What if I can show you that I'm not the person who tried to manipulate you? I looked at her directly. How exactly would you prove that? I could come to Denver with you. We could start fresh, away from all the influences here. Start fresh by following me to a city where you know no one, have no job, and no support system? That sounds like dependence, not change. She was quiet for a moment. Then what would convince you that I'm different? Nothing. The word hung in the air between us. That's what you don't understand. This isn't about convincing me or proving anything. This is about the fact that when you thought you could get away with it, you chose manipulation over honesty. But people can change. Sure they can. But they change for themselves, over time, through consistent actions, not through grand gestures after they get caught. I finished my coffee and stood up. I hope you do change. I genuinely hope you figure out who you are when you're not getting advice from toxic friends or trying to control situations through manipulation. What if I already know? What if losing you made me realize exactly who I want to be? Then be that person. For yourself. Not for me. Not to win me back, but because that's who you actually are. She started crying again, but these tears seemed different. Less desperate, more genuinely sad. I really did love you, she whispered. I know you did. In your way. I picked up my keys. But love without respect isn't enough. And you can't respect someone you're actively trying to manipulate. Wednesday morning, she drove me to the airport. The conversation was minimal, but not hostile. Just two people who'd reached the end of something that might have been beautiful if it hadn't gotten poisoned by games and manipulation. At the departure gate, she made one final attempt. What if I moved to Denver in 6 months? After I've had time to work on myself? Would you consider starting over? I looked at her one last time. If you're going to work on yourself, do it for yourself. Don't do it with the goal of winning me back. That's just another form of manipulation. So that's it. 6 years of marriage gone. 6 years of marriage that ended when you decided to follow your friend's advice instead of just talking to your husband. I picked up my carry-on. The marriage you're mourning ended 3 weeks ago. You're just realizing it now. As I walked toward the boarding gate, I didn't look back. Not because I was angry, but because I was genuinely excited about what came next. For the first time in months, I felt like I was making decisions based on what I actually wanted, not reacting to someone else's manipulation. Sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst behavior, even when that someone is the person you once thought you'd spend your life with. 6 months later, I was settling into my corner office in Denver when I got an unexpected call from my former brother-in-law. Thought you should know what's been happening here, he said without preamble. Denver had been everything I'd hoped for. The job was challenging and rewarding. I'd bought a house in the mountains with an incredible view, and I'd started dating someone who communicated directly instead of playing games. She's been in therapy twice a week since you left, he continued. Cut off contact with that friend completely. Got a job, her own apartment. Seems like she's actually working on herself. Good for her, I said, and I meant it. The friend, though, that's a different story. Word got out about what she did. The recording made its way around their social circle. She's basically been ostracized. Lost her job when her employer found out she was coaching people on manipulation tactics during work hours. I felt a brief moment of satisfaction, then moved on. Actions have consequences. She tried reaching out to apologize to you through the family. Wanted your number. I hope you didn't give it to her. Hell no. But she's apparently telling everyone who'll listen that this whole thing ruined her life. She ruined her own life when she decided to sabotage other people's marriages for entertainment. There was a pause. Look, I know this isn't my place, but she's really changed. My sister, I mean. She's not the same person who tried that manipulation stunt. I'm glad to hear that. I genuinely hope she builds a better life. But her growth doesn't undo what she chose to do when she thought she could get away with it. I'm not a rehabilitation project or a reward for personal improvement. He was quiet for a moment. Fair enough. Just thought you should know. After hanging up, I looked out my office window at the Rocky Mountains and felt nothing but gratitude. That phone call confirmed what I'd suspected. I'd made the right choice. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Despite changing my phone plan, she'd somehow tracked down my new contact information. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed you to know that you were right about everything. I'm sorry for who I was and grateful for who I'm becoming. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Not out of cruelty, but because engagement would only encourage more contact. The next weekend, my girlfriend and I went hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park. As we reached the summit and looked out over the vast landscape, she asked about my previous marriage for the first time. Do you ever regret how it ended? I regret that it had to end at all, I said honestly. But I don't regret refusing to accept manipulation as normal behavior. What if she really has changed? Then she'll build a good life with someone else. Change doesn't entitle anyone to a second chance with people they've already shown they're willing to betray. She nodded thoughtfully. That's a hard line to take. It's the only line that makes sense. You teach people how to treat you by what you're willing to accept. As we hiked back down the mountain, I realized I hadn't thought about my ex-wife in weeks. Not because I was avoiding the memories, but because I was genuinely focused on building something new and authentic. The friend who started it all apparently never recovered from the social consequences of her manipulation coaching. According to later updates, she'd moved to a different state after losing multiple friendships and her reputation in their community. My ex-wife, from what I heard, actually did seem to transform herself. Got promoted at her new job, developed healthier friendships, stopped seeking validation through relationship games. But that was her journey to take. Mine led to Denver, to a career I loved, to a relationship built on honesty instead of manipulation, and to the knowledge that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's worst impulses. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. Sometimes they end with two people going their separate ways to become who they're meant to be. And sometimes, that's exactly the ending everyone needed.